The Europeans still didn't have large ships. It was the more sails, more ships, more navigators that even doing up until 1492 in the Maya era. Still Africans who have a background coming from this area of ancient Kaf. So we need to be clear. Even in ancient Kemet, they had battles with the so-called sea people. Yeah. And the sea people ravished all of Europe and the Mediterranean and was destroying everybody. And ancient ancient Kemet, during their so-called second golden age, they battled with sea people and devastated them. So I need to be really clear who we are and our origins. But ancient Kemet owes all of its records to the interior of Africa, the Badu Netcha language, the Badu Netcha writing, all of the Netcha root comes from the interior of Africa. I need to be clear. The interior of Africa. So now as we move at the beginning of the first golden age, some of my teachers were dynamic in breaking it down. So Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Sendretti, Jacob Covers, and all of them broke down, instead of using the dynastic periods that the Greeks and the Romans and later the modern day Europeans used, we broke Kemet into four golden ages. So the first golden age is what you would call like the pyramid age. That's the beginning of when Narmer came in and reunified ancient Kemet. And we say reunified because obviously if Harut el-Aketi was done 10,000 years ago, that was done by a unified, powerful nation.
How important is the space? I mean, is Harut el-Aketi, and talk a little bit about that artistic expression and how it was done.
Well, first of all, we know that it's perfectly aligned with the constellation of Leo the Lion, which takes place in that area around 10,000. And in order for that to happen again, you have to go back 36,000. And so it's possible that the alignment and astrology, all of that was laid out way before 10,000 BC. We're saying 10,000 BC.
I used to write confusing sentences that were hard to read. But after 30 days in Cosmo, my writing is clearer, stronger, with...
Because we can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, it was already there when the last ice age took place. Great floods and water did water damage to that structure. So it was already there. Some of my colleagues, we believe that it might be as much as 36,000 years old, because it was up there to warn you of a time period, what was going to happen at the constellation of Leo. So no one built it during that time. It was already there when the constellation of Leo took place. And no one built it when the Earth was going through a traumatic change. The Earth was going through earthquakes, volcanoes, and storms, and you ain't out there chiseling away building the Harut el-Aketi. It was already there.
How was it built? I mean, is it solid?
It's hewed out of one stone. And so and perfect symmetrically, 60 feet high, 240 feet long.
Is there anything on any carved structures on the Earth today to match that? I mean, modern?
Nothing in the modern world.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So you it's perfect symmetry. And we have to understand, like when it was recarved, now the head of Harut el-Aketi does not match the body. It is believed that the head was recarved after the ancient Kemet reunified. Okay, so that's, after Norman. And it has a priest head. The high priest head, or the Supriti head. Okay, that's the head of the high priest with the lion's body. And that meaning that master the animal domain. If the lion is the king of the animal domain, so master your animal nature, but rise to your highest spiritual consciousness, and that is of the high priest. And it's set there facing, protecting like the pyramid complex from sunrise to sunset. And so that's what the Haru object, a group protecting, our legacy from sunrise to sunset. Like, just think about it. The Sphinx is a mythological creature created by the Sphinx that has waves that will kill you if you don't know the riddle. Right? So now, if you're in Haru Imhotep represents the power of Haru, protecting Ra and all of this energy from sunset to from sunrise to sunset. So if your son said, "Dad, I want to be the Sphinx," you'd be like, "Whoa, what's in this son? What you think about, but he'll kill you if you don't know the really say he's a monster." But if he says, "Dad, I want to be like Haru Imhotep. I want to protect our legacy from sunrise to sunset." Like, "Oh, go with that, son. I can feel that, So you can see just the difference of a name.
Absolutely.
The name. And so when we call it the Sphinx, we're taking away our legacy. We're taking away the whole meaning of the statue. We're taking away what our ancestors put that there for. We're taking all of that away. There's a complex next to Haru Imhotep, later reconstructed by Top Brum, right? And inside of that structure, there are no corners to the building. Every is rounded corners in the whole structure. There's no other structure that's like that. This structure was built prior to ancient Kemet. Those stones are huge, and there's some of them are 20, weigh 20 tons, 25 tons, placed in perfect symmetry, with no margin or cement or chewing on holding it together. And they are all rounded. It is believed to, it's a healing temple dealing with sound, so that you can use sound to heal and vibrate on all the major centers of the body, and use the voice and use sound. Now that temple is more than 10,000. You don't hear anybody talk about that. Just like the Wasarian temple. So I need to mention these things before I even get deep into ancient Kemet. The Wasarian temple is built where Seti the first built his temple, which is the third golden age. He had to build his temple and cut it to a right angle. No other temple was like that. Because in the construction, he was going to run into the Asarian temple. It's another temple that is in perfect harmony and symmetry that was built maybe 10,000 years ago.
What were temples built for, folks?
So temples were like universities. They were so get temple like church out of your mind. Remember, no church, no religion.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari, Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy. I look forward to you joining us at our next investor webinar, where you can drill deeper into the 9 to 13% annual growth. See how our company has become an emerging leader in the oil and gas industry.
The temples in ancient Kemet were repositories of the knowledge of the people at the time. And so inside of the temple was an accumulation of all the knowledge that the people had mustered that particular time. And so when you have these temples that are perfectly aligned with astrological symbols and astronomy, within the sky, it lets you know that the builders of this temple had knowledge of the sky, had already mapped the sky out. And now they were like, so was above, so below, or building a temple that was in total harmony with what was going on in the heavens, in terms of sunrise, sunset, in terms of the constellations, and so these people are putting their accumulated knowledge inside of this building. Now people will say, well, why would you have blocks that are 25 tons? That's enormous. Why would you have something so difficult? See, we're using a Western mindset to define a spiritual system. You're only using 3 to 10% of your brain. These people were using 50 to 100% of their brain. So you can't even comprehend what they're doing. Obviously, if they use blocks 25 tons, then that wasn't a difficult thing for them. But the Stonehead, you had nothing to do with Stonehead. Those were still Africans who put all that together. And putting those blocks up there was not as difficult as people want to believe. You think about that with the story, and there is no connection. The only symbol found in this temple They could be 10,000 years old. It's the golden meat, the golden flower, which is symbolic of the mathematical formula and structure of all life on the planet Earth.
Yeah, very important because that has a relationship to time. And time is an intellectual concept. Speak ease.
Well, the Fibonacci code, they call it Fibonacci today. Today it's the golden mean, which is 1.61, okay? Which is more sophisticated than pi, okay? The formula for pi was done by people who were like in kindergarten, first, second, third grade, okay? All the structures were based on the golden means. That gives you perfect proportions of everything. So I just want to make the golden mean was known to these Africans more than 10,000 years ago. So I just need you to understand the structure of a pine cone, the structure of a flower, the structure of a seashell is all based on the golden mean. The human cell, how it divides and structure, all based upon this formula. So they knew the proportion. The reason why all the monuments were in perfect symmetry, that the golden mean shows you that the proportion from your forehead to your nose to your bridge here to there is the same proportion on your finger, from here to here to here to here, which is the same proportion on your body, from here to here, which is the same proportion from your hip to your knee to your ankle, the same proportion of your foot. So your head size, your hand size, and your foot size are all proportionally the same size. A good tailor, if he knows your glove size, he knows your head size and your shoe size. This is all known in golden mean. So they would put up a grid based upon that. And so whether the statue was 1 inch or whether the statue was 60 feet high, like that apple symbol. An apple symbol done by Ursa Ma'at Satepenra, who they call Ramses II. It's in perfect symmetry. Perfect symmetry. It's 60 feet high. Perfect symmetry. And not only that, that apple symbol, you have, and most of the temples had a similar structure that you had at outer court, inner court, with the Holy of Holies. And usually they would have libraries on both sides of the Holy of Holies. This is the symbolic of the human body. You have your outer court, your inner court, and then your holy sanctuary, where your Holy of Holies is here, your final joy trading land, our house. And so your temple will be set up also like that. And the temple at Waset and at Karnak shows you that. They call it the Temple of Man. Showing up, it's basically set up just like the human body. But let me go back to Apple Symbol. In Apple Symbol, inside of the Holy of Holies, there are 4 statues aligned inside. So that when Ra hits during a certain time period, during the equinox and the solstice, the light travels through the 3 rooms into the Holy of Holies and hits each one of the next room, all the way to the ruler.
Living alone to pay off debt, it feels backwards, right? That's what I thought, until my credit card started hitting me with a 25% interest rate. So I went...
Where at that point was Ursa Ma'at Satepenra. And so the astronomers, the engineers of ancient Kemet during the very golden age understood the 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes, how light emanated on this planet, where the sun rose, and exactly what angle it would hit. To build a temple that they had to carve into the mountain. They don't put blocks up, they carved this into the mountain perfect. Just like in Lalibela in Ethiopia, where you have the rock churches carved out of a single mountain into perfect symmetry into the cross. So we didn't lose this science. I want you to see, even when Kemet fell, and we had the Greeks and the Roman encroachment, and many of the African scholars just moved further south. And so you will have Monroe and they will go all the way to the Common Era. And not some of them will be destroyed until the Islamic conquest around 640 BCE. I mean, 80 CE, the Common Era. And so the ingenuity of the African mind still exists.
Oxford, churches, I've been there, but I couldn't really understand it. Because they connected it to Christianity, and they couldn't tell me when it was built. I mean, there was just such a lack of information that I got all the footage.
You'll see the second, right? You'll see the second with false doors in it for the spirit world. So in Lalibela and in Ethiopia, they have seconds that go up 100 feet high, just like an ancient Kemet. And the second is what they call the homeless. Me and Dr. Jeffries did a dynamic tape edited by, done by, yeah, you saw that, right? On the second. Right, it's called the second. And we showed that the second is a phallic symbol, a male phallic symbol, but it represents resurrection and rebirth that was placed in front of each of the temples of ancient Kemet. Remember, the temple is a repository of your accumulated knowledge up until that point. And so we're not knowing that. It's a university. It's a university. It doesn't need a teacher. It's a university when you walk in and look at the angles of the wall. When you look at how the windows are aligned. When you look at how the roof was aligned in the observatory. When you look at the columns. When you start to read the glyphs, it's all right there. Thousands of years of stored information is in each temple, from the mathematics and the science. I want to make this statement. See, science is spirituality that can be seen. Spirituality, science, cannot be seen, cannot be measured, cannot be proven by physical entities, but can be felt. So whether it is spiritual or whether it is scientific, you can feel it. One is seen and one cannot be seen. But they both are based upon the same mathematical ingenuity that the Africans held and gave birth to the rest of the world.
Because we are talking about the spirituality that gave birth to the calendar, I've always wondered, because time is involved in a calendar, how that came about and just the importance of it. Because we don't really understand what the Africans went through to develop time. Time is an intellectual concept.
Sure.
So you have to have a juxtaposition of the movement of the cosmos and the universe and the sun and the moon and everything to come up with a correct representation of that movement with time. It's like a universal joint in your car. The motor turns, the wheels turns, but it's all turning in perfect harmony.
Yes, we understood this phenomenon going back more than 100,000 years. That's before we even populated the planet. We understood this concept. Okay, so you understand, the first star charts are created by Africans. When Kemet comes into existence and Kosh comes into existence, the star chart is already ancient.
How can you prove that?
We can prove, okay, first of all, not the fly shows a constellation, a star, in the sand, showing the alignment of Sirius A and Sirius B. And it shows where the equinox and the solstice were, 6500 BCE. That's 2,000 years before the birth of ancient Kemet. So all the science that we have in ancient Kemet is in Nacapaya, in the desert in the Sudan, right there. And then those people as the Sahara dried up just migrated into Kemet. So we see where this information comes from. But it goes beyond that. If you go to South Africa, if you go to Zimbabwe, the pyramids, they have pyramids there that are aligned with the pyramids in Kemet.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Breakfast foods to avoid. Nobody was drinking fat-free milk before 1950.
In
Did you
Zimbabwe,
figure that? Yeah. In Zimbabwe and in South Africa. There are pyramids that are aligned with the Great Pyramids in Giza.
over.
Yes. It's going to blow you away. They're 100,000 years old. I know I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to pull out some books. I'm going to show you. We're going to have a break. I'm going to pull this out so you can see it. And petroglyphs, like I said, of the 100,000 years old. You know, there's carving, and it just shows you that we had this technology. And not only there, they also, just like it not the fire, an astrological setting on the ground with stones set up just like it knocked the fly up, showing the constellation of Sirius A, Sirius B, and the rotation of the solstices and equinox as it relates to the Earth. 100,000 years ago. So we have not applied 6,500 years ago, 6,500 BCE. That's just an offshoot that shows the migrations of Africa from East Africa and Southern Africa, East Africa migrating, because there was a great civilization in the Sahara. Okay, but as that dried up, and people migrated either further west in north, or they moved towards the Happy Valley. All right, so I'm just gonna just touch upon that. When we have a break, I'm gonna pull some of those books out so that you can see that. But now let me just say this. So we mentioned, for example, in Satan's Temple, that we had recorded 3 sun years. A sun year is approximately 26,000 years. Now, in order to record a sun year, that's the sun moving through the constellation of the 12 houses, you need a science already in place to calculate this. And how long have you had the science? Wait a minute, if you recorded 3, before you did the first one, you must have been recording for thousands of years, even to get to the point where say, oh, we're gonna pinpoint this until it comes back to that point again. So I'm trying to show you here that the whole concept of a time, of a calendar, and we've been using, even in ancient Kemet, we had a lunar calendar, a solar calendar, you had the solar calendar and the lunar calendar, and a third calendar, because they had another calendar that dealt with the astrological phenomena. They had a calendar for festivals, and then they had a calendar for political and taxation, agriculture. So they had the agriculture. So they simultaneously, they had these 2 calendars going in ancient times. The Romans, like Augustus, and Catholic priests come to Rome and put their calendar together. So they just took a Kemetic calendar and put Roman names on it. So August was for Augustus, Octavia for Octavius, Julius Caesar for July. So that's all we did, was, the Kemetic priests just took a Kemetic calendar and Greek and Romanized it. That's all. All right, so I made it clear. No Western people developed a calendar. We are the authors of that concept of time. As we're tracing the movement of the stars. So before ancient Kemet, that was already ancient. That wasn't developed at the time. These priests brought this knowledge in. See, what people fail to realize, even the building of the 3 in Giza, Menkaure, Ephron, and Khufu, the 3 large pyramid complexes,
Yes.
are aligned with Sahu, who they call Orion's belt. Okay, Orion is Sahu, okay, the ancient Kemet. And it's aligned with his belt. So, and how those pyramids not exact same order, but they already knew that, that what was going on in the sky. So was the fog so below. And these are so-called air dumps, which you don't need air dumps in the pyramid where ain't nobody living in there. So those are not, those are shafts that point to various constellations in the sky. So the builders of that, and let me say this, all the major pyramids that were done in ancient Kemet were built on ancient site that was already spiritual and holy. There are megaliths in Seneferu, like Seneferu was the father of Khufu, who built 3 pyramids. The Big Pyramid, the Red Pyramid, the True Pyramid. If you go inside of the Big Pyramid, if you go inside of, not the Big, I believe the Red Pyramid, if you go inside and you go in the chamber, you'll find almost in the center of that pyramid, there's another room with big monolithic stones that were weathered by water, just like the roof in the ship. Now, it's been here for 10,000 years like this. And our stones inside of the pyramid get water weathered.
Right.
So, in other words, there was a structure there before they built the pyramids that was ancient, that was damaged during the last ice glacier about 10,000 years ago. The Nephilim built the pyramid on top of that site because it was already a sacred, holy site that the people were already coming to. Are you starting to feel my drift?
Yes.
And if we go and we examine many of these other great pyramids, we'll find the same phenomenon. So even the Khufu, that the hallway inside the first causeway is not the same age as that outside of that building. And that temple was that pyramid was supposed to have been built within a 20-year period. No, it's literally hundreds of years separating the interior of that building from the exterior of that building. No one talks about that. And the interior of that building is also aligned with particular astrological symbols in the sky. That's another DVD. We won't talk about that another. You know, so I'm just going to show you. See, we can talk just on the science of ancient chemistry. The Western world is still trying to prove what the ancient Kemeter already knew. It's like when I was with Asa Hilliard, and the German Egyptologists were like, well, how does the Dogon, they supposed to know this stuff? How do they know, that Sirius B is only visible every 60 years? You know, and they've been doing this thing for, what, 1,000 years? How do people know that? Some smart Europeans must have came here and told them.
That's what they did.
You know, and Europeans don't know that. Just in the with the powerful telescope they have in Hawaii and California, in the last 30 years, they've just been able to see Sirius B. And the Dogon, let me just put them in the proper perspective, come from ancient Kemet. They are one of the last groups that migrate from the Happy Valley on the influx of the Arab and Islamic invasion of Eastern Africa. The Dogon took their knowledge after all the temples were totally closed by the Romans, and then they just made them. And they moved to an area that nobody would want. They're in the most desolate area of the mountain desert. So you're saying somebody lives there? They didn't want to be bothered by anybody. You know, they didn't want to encroach on a land that other Africans were living in. And they definitely wanted to escape Islamic conquest. And so they moved into an area that they can, first of all, they can see if anybody's coming. It's protected. Their warriors can defend it. And it's a land that nobody really wants. You know, so, you know, but the Dogon had this area, and there's no group that we know of today on the planet Earth as an ethnic group that group that has more information of astronomy and astrology as the Dogon, other than what was in ancient Kemet. And they come directly from ancient Kemet.
Are you looking to establish your business using an address other than your home? Well, at iPostal One,
This is your library.
Yes,
Wow. I mean, you've got thousands of books here. Thousands of books.
last night.